Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Just to make you aware, this podcast may contain some explicit/offensive language, and if that's not your thing, you don't have to listen, but I have given you a warning. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
You don't know the half of it, but anyway. I'm skating on the thinnest ice known to man.
He said, and they put a poison in the tank that just instantly kills them. He went and we'd run out of it, so we cut their heads off with shovels.
Suddenly, bang! The whole boat exploded.
Take your sort of 8-inch long piranha and imagine that at 4, 5, maybe 6 feet.
I said, I've revived your dead fish. F off, he said. You haven't.
That was just humongous. It was... I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I'm just battling this fish out in the pond. I know it's a black mirror. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again.
If you catch fish and you return them to the water, then you are my brother.
Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast, episode number 49, would you believe? Now, to celebrate episode 49, not 50, because we've got something else special planned for that one, I'm going to go against convention and throw a little best of show in. So there's some choice select best of what has been almost my first full year in the role, and various guests have been on the sofa. I thought I'd compile all those best bits and give them to you. If you haven't watched the podcast before, maybe you haven't seen the guests, it's a great opportunity to have a little whimsical tour of everything that's gone on in the past 49 episodes and hopefully whet your appetite for the next 49. As I'm here, I wanted to say a massive thank you to everybody who showed love and support for the podcast and me hosting it. Dan and Alfie did a brilliant job season 1 and the start of season 2. They'll feature in this best of bits as well. So a massive shout out to them. But there's been loads of love and I massively, massively appreciate it. Also, a huge thank you to all the guests that have appeared on the podcast and the guests that are hopefully going to appear in the future. Sit back, turn your radios up, or put YouTube on a little bit louder and enjoy the best of the first 49 episodes of season 2.
Gone home for a couple of days, straight back to the mere. I parked up, but not the rat hole end. I'd said to myself, okay, so we're back on the mere, right? I need to go and find them. But the last trip I'd done, which I meant to say, I'd heard a couple of fish and it sounded in my water, but over the other side, right. southwest corner swim, they call it, whatever. So I'd parked down that end, I walked round and you get near the swim and it's where Malin caught it the second time. And I stood there, looked, I'd boated it many times. I'd seen this cressweed, I don't know what it's called, like the top of cress, but real short on the bottom. And it was a gully about 25 yards out. And I always remember when I eyed it up, there was like 2 tits, I called them, and in the horizon, like nipples. And I thought there was always something there. I eyed it up. Anyway, I walked along and it was like a load of trees falling in. I can only say it was like 80 yards worth. So it was like quite a snaggy area, yeah. Right? If they'd done a kite, you've had it. And then just before you go up to the hill, where you can look down and see the car, there was like a little bit you could go through under a willow. And I'd looked there so many times and there was like a glide of sand. It was always dirty. But I envisaged them coming through there at some point. Why wouldn't they feed on it? And you know, sometimes, I don't know if you've ever done this, you've dismissed the area straight away and then you've gone, no, look. So I'd only gone a few feet and I made myself go under the willow that was half fallen down, went in it. Shit, there they are. No black mirror, but 30 pound commons on the spot feeding. Whoa, they're here. So what I'd heard was correct. So what I'd done is it was getting on late. The sun's starting to set, but it's September. Maybe I had 2 hours left. So I quickly walked as fast as I could back towards the boat, drove it to the rat hole, unloaded it, put it in the mere, and then went up up the lake because I didn't want to go nowhere near that area.
Yeah.
Because I now knew there's a real good chance we're coming into a prime time to bag, especially that one. So I've gone up maybe 150 yards past the swim, but up the centre of the lake and then in. And then I've gone down the margin and I've got to about 30, 40 yards away where I could get out, leave the boat there, hide it, and then walk my kit down. And then I just found out 3 choddies, on the 2 tits.
Yeah.
A little bit of squid round it, but there's a story here as well. I noticed when I tweaked that squid years ago, I had the rock salt put in it, and there was a period, it went white, but it went from a red colour, because it was Scopex squid red.
Yeah.
It went purple. But that bait, basically, when it started to go to the purple colour, had about 24 hours left. But it was the best. And I'd saved that mother. There was maybe 1.5 kilos in that bag that I'd refroze.
Yeah.
So I'd put it back to sleep. Okay. Anyway, I got it out, thawed it out, and I put that out there. And in the morning I got up, I'd heard a few fish to the right, but I'd laid in. Do you know what I'd even done? I don't even think I put this in the book. Maybe I did. I can't remember now, actually. I took a DVD player with me.
A DVD player?
Over the mere. So I got the battery out of the
boat. Yeah, for the boat.
Yeah. And I'm in there and just clipped it on. I'm just watching. I can't even remember the film. It'd be some vampire cutting up thing, because I'm savage about it. I love it.
You like that, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Cutting
Yeah.
up and that sort of stuff. That's been a common theme today.
I would honestly think it was probably one of the Blade films, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm well into that. Anyway, I got up because I didn't want to make a lot of noise, right? And I wanted to be able to sit there more this time and not, if you can imagine, you're close. I don't know if it was like a premonition. I knew something was going to happen while I bought it, or maybe just to break the night up or something. I don't know. Anyway, 10 o'clock. No, about 9:45. I thought, because if you walked on it, it was like walking on.
Right.
It weren't good.
Noisy.
Out in the lake, it's fine, but not when you're fishing close, and they're close as well. It was
How close are they then from where you've actually set up?
maybe 80 yards along the bank.
Yeah.
6 foot out.
6 foot out.
So you could imagine they're in them trees, isn't they?
Yeah.
I didn't want to go looking, didn't want to scare them. The ultimate prize could have been there, or something else.
Mm.
You've heard all the rumours.
Yeah.
Anyway, I couldn't. I had to go and have a look. It was just like eating me alive. I went down there, right, and crept in. I'd even put some crumb baits there. Nothing. And the crumb baits were there. It was like, oh dear, this is not good. So now I've got doubt. Oh God, I've got to pack up. I've got to look for them. I get back to the bivvy, right? And just as I go past the bivvy, Rod just goes, scream like that. It's the ultimate scream and stop I've ever had in my life. Just beep. That's it. Nothing else. No movement. Nothing. I thought, what the hell? So anyway, I picked the rod up, and I've always used Nash. I've always used Nash pursuits, and I picked the rod up and I've loaded it, and it's like starting to bend proper. I'm now. Don't really want to be exerting this much, but it's obviously something's happened.
Yeah.
And then like that. That was it. Put the rod down, put it on the rest, set the clutch, got the boat, took the battery up to the boat, put the life jacket on, come down, put the net in the boat, went out. Right. I didn't actually know that there was a weed bed to the left. And what had happened, he'd somehow manipulated on the take and got in there.
Yeah.
So when I got above it, it's like any weedy, not snag, but weed. It is a snag. You get above it and it just pops up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's an algae bloom, innit? But it's blowing a northerly, and I'm behind the northerly, it's going down the other end.
Yeah.
So it's you've got clarity of maybe, let's say, if you saw something 6 or 7 foot down, you could see it. You know what I'm going to say to you here, don't you? So I get over it, and all of a sudden it rises. Up comes a lead core, 8 foot lead core, something like that. Black mirror. Oh no. And then all it does is like took off on the surface, flat rodded me to the snags It's going to the snags. So that's only like 20, 25 yards away. I've got the boat. I put the boat into full reverse and held on so it can't pull me, because if hadn't done that, it'd have taken me in there. Chances are I'd have lost it. So I exerted more pressure than I'd really want to do in that situation with such an iconic fish. And then it just come away, and then it just charged down the lake. And anyway, this high-profile angler had just been round, and he turned round and he said, "Oh, I'm on him over there." And I turned round and went, "It's all show and no go over there, son." So anyway, he's gone back. Then it's Jim, running around the lake. I'm just battling this fish out in the pond. I know it's a black mirror. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again. I won't do this. I won't do that. Please, I pray. It's the ultimate flipping prize in carp fishing. And it's the end of a saga, isn't it? Yeah, and it's like, please. And this thing is fighting like you do not want to know. Charges, I could not calm it. 1 minute you'd have it there, the next minute it'd just go on a mental run. I probably ended up out in the pond, 100 yards out in the lake, and the battle was 18 to 22 minutes, maybe. I don't know. It was just a long time. I know I just kept looking up and saying, Marky, please, let me catch this one. It's for you.
Is that what you were saying?
And it was like, when it come up, you're on a 3-inch hook link. I got a size 6 hook because
What hooks were you on here?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that on here. I don't want to get cauterized, do I? No. And I didn't catch it on a quarter hook. I didn't either. I had to do that. But anyway, you imagine, the eye contact I had when I saw it in the boat. I've got that fish looking at me now. And it done one final, go. But it flat rodded me, probably 30 yards. And that was the end. I went to it, and I can't make it sound any easier than what I'd been through. It's in the net. I look up, I cry. I've never cried over a fish in my life. I don't know. I can't even explain it. No. I shout, I lose my voice, I can't talk.
What did you shout? Just a general bellow?
Fucking black, fucking mirror! Like that, and I've ripped my throat out. I've just sat there I know it sounds all a bit corny, whatever, but I was in a right mess.
Yeah.
I caught that for Mark, that one. And, I can remember when I told several sponsors that when I catch that, I'm not putting no sponsorship on. I'm catching that one for myself and keeping it. And Kevin understood that as well. And I'm now going to pay Kevin back and give you the video footage as a thank you and all the rest of it. Oh. But when I got the fish back, I'm going to pop the hook. I'm going to touch it. It's like I want to touch it, and it's like I put my finger in its mouth. I've touched its head. I've gone down its side. I've turned it in the net, and I've just looked at it. And when you can look at it like that, and you see all them special marks and all the rest of it, it's like,
what a fish,
it don't,
mate.
And it's like first person. What do? Get back to bank. The superstars in my swim, and he helps me out and all the rest of it. And I phoned Jane.
Is that your first phone call, Jane?
Yeah, I phoned Steve.
What was that phone call like?
She's Jane? Just like, well done, darling, actually. Well done, darling, you fully deserve it. I wasn't a life or anything. I was fairly lucky. I'd done around about 35, 40 nights. But it was hard. I had one bite, one fish, nothing else, to the point of, I'm not going to name names, but it was just a bit of fun. Jim, you haven't caught anything yet, mate. So you know what I done then, don't you? I text him. There's not 5 years, not 10 fish, no black mirror. First year, 40 nights, job done. And he just come back and he went, good angling. And I said, you lost a fish a few weeks ago. It's got a rip in its mouth, mate. But we still laugh about it now. I've seen him at Rockford. We still laugh now.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a bit of banter, and he was like that. He's made up like that. But they're like memories you always remember. And you imagine, like, I left the fish with the superstar, and you can imagine he's in my chest weighted. I would have thought he touched it and all the rest of it. And I had to go and get probably a mat, set of scales, a camera, video camera, because he just didn't take them things. That was just like, it was weight and things you didn't need.
Of course.
You know, even if you didn't, I could make a call. You know, I need a camera, waist, scales, you know, and all the rest of it. So you can imagine I've walked out that way, straight up the side of the mere to the lagoon and the skeeler, and then come out, and then I'm just talking to people. I've got to the van. I've got a special bottle in there. I've cranked that bottle open. I've drunk some of it because I know I'm probably going to go. And I do regret I did go because I should have stayed on, but I'm more worried about it being raided.
Yeah.
Mad Martin said he'll come down and help me as well. So by the time I was back, Mad Martin turned up within a few, say 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Got the fish out. I mean, it's undescribable to catch such an historic, epic, rarely caught carp as well. And, you know, I've seen it through twice. Well, I have seen it 3 times. The third time was me, you know. And hard to hold it. I can't, you know, was it 51.8? I know when I'm pretty sure it's 51.8 when he left. 51.8, fuck off, in the back of my van. Do you know what I mean? But when I left, after we'd done the pictures and that, it was like I went down the centre of the lake and I shouted, "Freedom!" like that. And I looked up and I went, "That's for you, Marky." Went then straight down the middle of the lake. There was one other angler in the canopy, and I apologised because I pulled the boat out near her. I didn't know there was anyone else on there. And then the lake still bit me.
Well, how?
The attachment to the outboard broke.
In my head at the time, I wasn't going to go fishing again. You know, this was a new life. It was a new life, Hassan. It was like the old grass is greener on, you know, and to me at the time it was greener. I wanted to be a club promoter. I wanted to be a DJ. I wanted to be an MC. I needed decks.
So
I didn't need 14 metres of pole and a load of top kits, bruv. I needed 2 belt drives and loads of vinyl.
So what do you think? Because I'm trying to think of 2 worlds there. I'm looking at drum and bass club scene, and then I'm looking at carp fishing. What do you think that attracted you so much within that you actually sold your kit and funded the other? What do you think it is that draws you to that? Because that's another polar opposite, if you like.
I don't know, but it was like, I loved it.
Did you?
I don't regret it. Like,
No.
Again, I don't regret it. And you know, it got bad in the end. You know, I remember for my 18th birthday, I wasn't even living at home. I was homeless. Luckily, I had a good circle of friends. You know what I mean? Like, homeless. I didn't want to be at home. The last people I wanted to see was my parents. Yeah. I didn't speak to my mum for 2.5 years.
Jeez.
Not a word. Yeah, it's bad. So people listen. They're all like, "Alan's such a lovely guy." And I am.
You are. Yeah, you are.
But do I regret it? Maybe that one. Fucking hell. You know, especially she's no longer with us.
Is that purely because of where things had gone for you?
I just, you know, I don't want to make excuses, but was it the rebellion? Was it the fact that I was made to go to church every weekend? No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. Was I was trying to stick the middle finger up at my parents? No, it wasn't that. It genuinely was. I'll be honest, Hassan, everything I've said so far is honest. No, it weren't that. So why did I loved it. It was better than fishing. It was better than fishing. Yeah, it was better, you know. Being in a big rave, like, it was just better than fishing. Putting on parties, going to parties, DJing, like, learning to mix, like, learning to MC, trying to, just being in that, having a big, maybe it was the friendship.
Okay.
Maybe up until this point, I'd never played in a football team.
Yeah.
Never been football training. So I've got friends at school, but then when school ended, maybe it was all of a sudden, I had a big group of friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to say the leader, but I was like,
respected within
I
that.
was one of the boys in that
course.
group. Like I wasn't sitting on the peripheral of that.
No.
You know, if we were going to go raving this weekend, I was going to make sure we were going raving. We were all going to go and we were going to knock, you know, it was going to be the most mental night ever and I'd lead it, fuel it. And I don't know, maybe I got a different, maybe that was the buzz.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
There's
anyway,
definitely something
that's
in
what
it.
happened. Like,
So you sold your kit?
sold everything. Yeah, I kept like one floater rod and a reel and a net and a mat and an essentials bag and I mean so a full match gear, full specimen gear, all my river gear, all my carp gear, everything, all of it, the whole lot gone. And it took me a while, you know, and I didn't just do it. I did it when I needed to. Right, shit, got an Ibiza trip coming up. Right, that'd be a couple of them rods. Yeah. That'd be enough to get some new clothes for it, for example.
Wow.
So yeah, got rid of the lot.
I can't imagine that. But obviously you've done it. At the same time, are you still studying horticulture and stuff or not?
Sorry, I've messed up there. The first 2 years of education, I did countryside management.
Okay.
At that point, I was still a little bit well-behaved. I still attended my lectures. I still walked away with a distinction. Whatever the highest mark you could get, I got. I attended my lectures. And partying was just part of it. You know, I was managing, there was a balance.
Yeah, you could
balance
balance both, yeah.
At the end of that, I was like, what do I do now? The minimum, I can't believe I'm saying this. This is me saying this, the minimum. And I went back and did a further 2 years in horticulture now. And I literally, I could count on two hands, mate. In 2 years, I went to less than 10 lectures. 100%.
Yeah.
100% less than 10 lectures.
Okay.
A really important point I've missed is, you know, and it's really important or relevant for what's coming up is, back when I was at school and I did this work experience week, I went and done it with a fisheries consultancy company.
Right.
Chris, mate, I got a lot I owed to this bloke as well, and did my week work with him. He took me electrofishing. We went netting for one day. I did some work on his fish farm, blah, blah, blah. And so that was around the age of 13. At the end of that week, he said to me, you're a cracking lad. Like, you work really, really hard. If I ever need a hand pulling a net or whatever, you can. And a relationship was formed after that week. That was all down to my mum. She single-handedly made that happen. She went through the yellow pages and she found something that I was really interested in. I didn't need to go to a tackle shop. I was already working in a tackle shop.
Of course,
so she made that happen. And that was a big turning point in my life in terms of where I've got to now. And yeah, he basically said over, you know, if I ever get any work, you can come and do it. And I did a lot of cash work for him, which was another huge fueler to this partying. I'd go out with him, you know, we go do a netting job.
Yeah.
If it went well, I'd watch him do a drop. Like, I'd go and see like a farmer. One of our favourite old boy, Georgie Bunker. And I still joke with him to this day about it. You could ring Georgie Bunker. Hello, George. You all right? Yeah, just flipped a load of carp. Like, got a truck full of like 5 to 15 pounders. Do you fancy some? Yeah, come over. We go over to his farm and that. And he was one of these, I'm going to dig a commercial lake. Yeah. And it was my first time I really saw cash. Yeah. And Georgie used to come over and that. And he would.
What a cash.
Yeah. No, I'm used to getting, like, I've been working in pubs or whatever. You get a little brown envelope with your money in it. I've never seen. And he'd be weighing Chris out like all this dough and that. And then, like, Chris would then weigh me out. Yeah. And I was only 14, 15, 16. So let's go back to the 16. I'm 16.
Yeah.
So I've just done a day's netting and I've been given 200-300 quid in cash.
Yeah, madness.
Mate, unlimited cash.
Yeah.
It felt like that at the time.
Yeah.
Like, so you just more partying. And anyway, so that was a important part. I did a lot of teaching for him. He had some big contracts back then. Corporation of London, for example, he had that contract.
Right.
Every Sunday I had to go into London and teach people to fish on Hampstead Heath, for example. Or some
Just
of the other
general
park lakes.
public or people?
Yeah. So it was a proper tick in a box exercise.
Yeah.
When I look back on it now, I think, like, he weren't daft, mate. He got a good contract there.
Yeah,
he got paid well for it. We had to put bums on seats. We had to get them to fill out a little thing at the end of it. You know, I got paid, I think it was 65 quid a day, to sit and, you know, basically fish and stuff. So that was also quite an important part. But yeah, did my 2 years horticulture.
So did you get
I'm off the rails.
Did you get a qualification?
Of course. I got a qualification in horticulture.
Oh, sweet.
At the same time, I was like, because it was easy, Hassan. I go and find some chicks in the class and that, and just be like, I just sort these assignments out for me, or it was complete. Do I know what That's plastic, but do I know
don't ruin the illusion, mate.
Do I know the Latin name of that, or I don't.
That is IKEA-us, mate.
What I did do, of an evening and that, I had my own little gardening business, basically like maintenance, and that was making me a lot of money, man. Like, I've always been a proud person. So if I was going to cut someone's lawn, or I was going to turn over their borders, or I was going to dig someone a pond or whatever, I'd do it well. I think no matter how off the rails I went, I suppose it's the same. When I went partying, I do it well.
Yeah.
I think that's probably me. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well.
You're all in.
Like, so, going back to this, I was like grafting hard, man. And it was a snowball effect and a half. You basically do someone's garden, do it well, clear up after yourself, get paid, walk out. They were telling either side, you need to get there. And it just got out of hand, mate. Plus, I was just working. I've always worked really hard. So the money was always there to fund things like this. But yeah, got my horticulture degree, turned 21 on Friday night, big party.
Oh, my days, yeah.
Mental party. And basically, that was a Friday, I think. It must have been a Friday. Because on the Sunday, I loaded up my dad's car and moved to Bedford. So up until this point, I've been living with my dad. Mum and dad have been split up a few years, living with my dad. And dad drove me Friday night, 21st. He drove me to Bedford, and I moved to on the Shuttleworth estate, and that's where I started working for the college full time.
So you said there was an interim period there where you'd gone for the 2 years, you'd sold everything, you were into the party scene, everything else, and you were just crashing at mate's house because your parents were like...
I only didn't live at home for a number of weeks.
Right,
it fell over my 18th birthday, and that was only me being stubborn. Do you know what I mean? They didn't kick me out as such. That was me just going, do you know what, I can't be dealing with you two now. I'm about to turn 18. I'm going to go and have the time of my life. Like,
so you're back in, you go back in, and then you go to Bedworth.
Yeah, Bedford. So I've lived at home. I didn't have to go and live in halls or anything for my further education. Okay. So 4 years at college, I'm managing to commute on a bus and stuff. Then I literally walked out of education myself, if you could call it that, education in the loosest terms, basically whatever, partying. I walked out of that and I literally had my 21st Friday, and then on the Sunday I moved out of home to Bedford. And basically what had happened was Chris, who I refer to with the fishery, this is why it's really important, he'd come of an age where pulling 150 metres of seine net, too much hard graft, and he'd basically seen a gap in the market, i.e. up until this point there's still only spar shoal. Right. And he's got, I don't think, he's not a doctor, but he had his degrees in fish management and fish science, and he's like, right, he was, fuck the pulling of the nets. Let's go and set myself. Let me get my foot in the door at a college where I know I'm going to get paid the same amount every month. Not worrying about getting weighed off by Georgie Bunker or whether we'd even catch any carp. And he made a really good life choice for him. Yeah. It just coincided nicely with me that once he got to that college, he realised very quickly how under-resourced they were. And because he knew I was a grafter, and I had relatively good skills. I weren't a lecturer or a teacher by any stretch of the imagination, but I had skills that not only his fish husbandry course required, that, he just knew, I suppose like Kev, that I was a grafter.
Exactly.
So I started work on the Monday at the college. I started as a science technician. It lasted about 3 months.
A science technician?
Yeah.
No
so my
way.
first job, it's a funny story here. I moved down to the college, definitely still hungover and in bits, worried about my life choices from the Friday night. And I remember moving into this house, shared accommodation with these 3 girls, lecturers, Helen, Charlotte. Yeah, proper sound. Really loved living with them. My time with them was amazing. So I'm this lad living with these 3 girls. I remember going down to see Chris. He also lived on site in a much bigger, nicer cottage than us. I didn't have any tackle because I've sold it, obviously. So I've got the bare minute. I said, what do I do now? And he's like, I don't fucking know. Look at this massive estate, Hassan, hundreds of acres. He said, why don't you go fishing? I ain't got any gear with me. He said, take my gear. And it's all old antiquated shit, proper old. He weren't a renewer of tackle or kept up to speed with modern tackle trends. But I managed to get a rod, a reel, a net. Bread was the only thing I could get. Yeah. And on site there was 3 lakes. There was a reservoir that was stocked with trout. There was a small lake, a middle lake, and then there was the estate lake, so the proper estate lake with a boathouse, with the big willows, fallen trees. Anyway, I've gone down there, caught the lake record, and as far as I know, to this day, it's never been beaten.
You're joking?
Nah, honest to God. It was like probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the Sunday. Big common, beautiful common. I think I got the photos. He come down and weighed it and snapped off a couple of pics. And
How did you catch that then?
just a bit of bread. Yeah, I didn't have anything else. I remember, this is proper, like... I had to squeeze a bit of bread on to make the bobbin. So my bobbin was squeezed bread on. It was bread on the earth, couple of split shot, and fuck me, I've caught it. I don't think, I might be wrong, because it's a long time ago now. But certainly when I worked there and for the years after, it never done a fish bigger. It was like 25.8 or 25.10 or something. Really lovely common. It actually died. We had a fish kill and stuff in late years.
Big estate lake common. That's very mate. Straight back into
no. I'm well, like, tells like, who? Nicky Black Market. And so, and my first day, my Monday, science technician, I had to cut the leg off a horse with a hacksaw. Yeah, that was my first job. So
I mean, surely that's not...
That's normal. When you work at an agricultural college, big department was equine, big department. Basically they needed to understand the veins or the blood circulation system in a horse's leg, and I had to remove the lower part of the leg with a hacksaw.
A hacksaw doesn't sound like the most scientific butchering implement.
Mate, I don't know, but that was what I did.
Talk to me about Northlake.
Well, say Northlake, Rich McDonald's capture inspired me all them years before, when I was a carp cadet. Never seen Basil on the bank. Seen plenty of pictures of it, marvelled at it. Probably still one of the most impressive mirror carp I've caught to this day. I've caught bigger, but, everything about it, and you're going to fish for a fish that carp fishing legends have caught, I don't know how many captures before me, but you're going to fish for this fish, and there's some bloody good anglers on there as well,
Who was on when you went over?
When I went on there, I'd say main contender, the man to be worried about, was probably Dave Mallin.
Yeah.
Pretty useful. Yeah, got a history about him, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Dodgy Dave Mallin, I think we used to call him back then, but he didn't miss a trick, that bloke.
No.
I could see what he's capable of when I walked around the Northlake a few times with Jeff Pink. I remember him dangling a bread flake on it while it was basking round the corner near some bushes where the chap was fishing to, you think you're up against it here. This bloke's, maybe ruthless. There's a lot of etiquette at Yateley as well, but you start thinking, God, what am I getting into here? And I didn't sit back and plan it over a winter. I thought, I'm going to have a go for this. It's still end of August, still got September and October here. I'm going to go up the old Northlake. I think Rob was in the chair swim one evening, and I had a couple of weeks when I didn't have any work. He says, I heard some fish boshing in the old bush, Basil's bush behind. I thought, that's interesting. So I went and had a look, and as I gazed into the bush, the 30s swam through and Basil. I thought, Jesus. You're talking 12 acres of lake, and this, there they are, swimming under your feet. Well, I'll go and fish Basil's bush swim then. I'll do a 9-nighter in there for something to do. So I don't care if I blank. I've had a hell of a year anyway, And I think that would have been my second session, because I did a weekend before that on the point. I thought I've got to fish the point where Richie Mack caught the Basil from, just to ease myself in. But this was the first time I got on fish, and I don't know how many nights into that session, it might have been 6 or 7. But Derek Rance was on there. He's fishing the entrance to the bay. I think word was about that Basil had been in the bay, so it started to come on top. But, Bucks was fishing on there. He's on his 12th or 13th year on the lake, and, it's all sort of around you, and you're starting to soak it up thinking, eek, I might not be so lucky with this one.
No.
But I hooked a fish just before midnight in Basil's bush, and it done me in the snag. I had to borrow, Dave Mallin's boat to see if I could get it out, but I didn't. That's a lost fish. Don't know what it was to this day, but Them fish didn't come back. End of October that year. Bucks caught Basil, £49, but he weighed it quite a few hours after he caught it. You're talking about 10 hours after he caught it. Could have been £50. I seem to remember it might have had a scale lifted on it. Could have been me that hooked it in the bush. Don't know. I'll never know. Could have hooked it on me, first couple within my second session.
Classic Sharpie.
But
16 hours.
Don't know. I didn't land it, so it didn't count. But yeah, I did a couple of sessions. Didn't really amount to much, but I thought, I need to plan this for next year. Got planning with it. I was working on the building then, not doing removals, just odd carrying, earning some money, local job as well in Canberra. So I was up there straight from work every night, walking and looking. And then the job was told by the site agent that we had to get off site for a little bit. For some reason, there was another part of the build that was going on and didn't want the bricklayers around. So, yeah, we got told we have to get off site for a couple of weeks. And my mate Paul Toy was like, we're going to get a start here. And I'm going fishing, mate. So, he's like, April, I'm going up the North Lake. You ain't going to catch it. And I remember that evening when we, last day on that site, I went up to the 80 with some bait. I went up for a bait up the pipe, swim my bait up here and there. I remember I walked up through the centre path, got to the crossroads by Brute's Corner, and as literally my foot touched that crossroads, I heard someone shout out Basil. I thought, it's been caught. I remember I walked left, went round no one down the pipes, the islands of pipes, round to the Crowell, no one there. And I got around to a swim called Leroy's, and it's Dunker Carp, and there's a dinghy upside down on the bank, Dave Mallin's dinghy. So I knew whose kit it was, the dinghy I'd borrowed the year before. And he weren't about. Rods were all sort of over the place, Carried on round, got to the main works bank swim, and Dave was sat there with a few other people, like Richard Howson and that, having a social. He caught it, and the shout was as he released it. He didn't shout when he netted it.
Right.
Yeah, I'd missed it again. I didn't get to see it. I think a year or so before I'd run up there because I knew Rob Malin had caught it and thought I'd see it, but it had been put back then. And I remember thinking, well, that's not good, is it? I might just go and do this other couple of weeks' work on a different site. Or I thought, I ain't caught a North Lake carp. I'm going to fish anyway. Everyone's going to refugee onto the car park lake, and I'll have it to myself so I can learn the lake a bit. Thought I'll come back the next day and I'll fish the main works bank swim, see the whole lake, good view, room with a view. First session on the lake, first kick off the year session, and I'll crack on with it. Well, it wasn't actually first session. I'd done a couple of weekends before that, but yeah, I'll be able to, scan the water, look for signs. Hopefully, might see something. And I think we was about probably a week into that session. Richie Howson had come back. He was on the point, and he heard good fish showing over by the Christmas tree. And he told me when I went round to see him. Again, he couldn't phone me or text me or anything. And I went and had a look around the pipe swim, see some fish feeding where I'd been trickling a bit of bait in each day. So I borrowed Richie's barrow. I decided I'll move round to the islands, set that up like a base camp swim, a bit like I did on the Cops Lake with the stilts, walk up and down the bank, bait the edge. And no point setting up full camp in an edge swim because one wrong movement or hook a fish and they spook, and then you just, what am I doing here now? But that was the plan. And yeah, I stalked the pipe, lost the fish. I think it's the pretty one they called it. I see it take the bait, but I managed to get out of the tree and bend into it, come off. I think I only just bone hooked it and turned the point over on the hook.
So you had 2 losses?
Yeah.
That's brutal, isn't it, on there?
And I'd caught a catfish out of there before as well. And yeah, I sort of thought, right, go back to the island, swim, bait the spot. Put the rods out there for the night, carry on. Next day we'll have another go, see what turns up down in the 30, 40s pipes area. And I can remember casting a rod out and there was a big drop in the water and a bow wave went off. I thought, I've spooked something there, haven't I? Yeah, bugger me. It's not good. And I think I caught a little common the next morning off of one of them rods. But yeah, I went back to try to see what's going on in that, pipe swim area. And again, followed suit the next evening, put the rods back out in the island swim. And I remember sitting there, Desi come around doing his bailiff round, and while we sat there drinking a cup of tea, this like just from the right hand margin, this bow wave come between the island and the bank, just come up, and it wasn't like a V bow wave moving fast or whatever, a small fish. This was more of a wake of water moving. And this come along the margins, and it got to where my two rod tips and lines were going, and it just stopped and turned right, followed the right-hand line down to where it was fishing between the close-in island and the middle one. And it went round the back of the island, and it was like, that was a big fish. That was North Lake, it was Basil, mid-40, mid to upper 40. The next biggest was the 30, the snake. And then you're talking a couple of 20-pounders, couple of doubles, you know. So this was one or two, quite possibly Basil, the way that's moving water. And then it reappeared. You know, we were sort of talking this. I said, that's it, isn't it? That's it. And it reappeared round the back of this island and went to where my left-hand rod was. And then the bow wave disappeared. It's all a bit, now, Desi sort of talking it up. You're going to have it. Like, you know, you'll have it. That night, a little bit sort of like, let's see what happens. And, I went to sleep, and next in the morning I woke up and it's misty. You could hardly see the islands. And I remember just as I woke up, this matey Chris was fishing the split lake behind me. He's come out. He said, I've got an 18 pounder. You do some photos? I went, yeah. I was thinking, not really want to do that just yet. Want a cup of tea and, look at the morning. And I said, yeah, when the mist clears a bit, mate, I'll sort it out. And off he's gone. And I remember just sitting there thinking, that is a Basil morning. Because Basil was actually known to get caught in the mist a bit, you know. Like, generally, mist is pretty, in my own findings, pretty crap for catching carp.
Terrible.
But this look, I remember thinking, that's a Basil morning. And as I thought it, that left-hand rod just, like, pulled up tight. I only had a little drop on a bobbing bank stick next to the rod because you're snag fishing and that between islands. Tight swim. Probably only had 30 yards of water tops in it with 3 islands around me. And I remember just looking at that bobbing as the line pinged out the clip and just seeing my rod tip come up out of the water and the rod arch round, and I jumped out of bed, bent into it. Straight away I could feel it grating on a branch. I was thinking, no, what's this? And I'll give it a bit more pressure. And all of a sudden, this tail come out of the water, slap, and then it all started moving towards me. And I remember jumping in the water, throwing my net in, jumping in the water, and then sort of coaching it. But as I was bending towards me, I could see this fish lolloping on the top like that as I was pulling it towards me. There's something weren't quite right. And about a rod length behind it, I could see the end of this branch following it at the same pace. And I'm thinking, no, I don't need this. I don't need this. And luckily, the fish rolled and it rid itself of this branch, and then was into a normal battle, which wasn't I was in charge by then, and I was trying to shorten the battle pretty quick, so I got it to the net quite quickly. Bit hungry with the net, tried to lift the net round it as soon as the nose touched the spreader block, and it was a bit too long for that, this fish was, and you couldn't simply just flick its tail in the net. And the fish suddenly realised what was happening, exploded a bit, and as it rolled over the cord of the net, I see what we used to call the famous side of Basil.
Oh, damn.
His right-hand flank just roll over the cord of the net, back out, heading towards the middle island. Oh. And I remember dropping the net like, let it have a bit of line, but you're talking, I couldn't, more than 30 yards, and that's it. Probably let it have 20 yards because I'm in the water by then. So I had to trust tackle, put a hand on the spool and just hold on.
Oh, that's horrible.
Knowing that I've got a dream on the end,
And your line's been round a branch at some point.
Yeah, so you don't know, do you, what your cold's like and everything. But, I had to trust the tackle and hold on, didn't I? Luckily, I was using lead core at the time, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Before North Lake, I hadn't played with lead core, but I was using it then, and managed to stop the fish, turn it back towards me. When I pulled it up to the net the next time, I didn't pull its nose to the spreader block. I pulled its gill plate up to the spreader block. I pulled it right up and netted it. I remember just looking in the net, thinking, I've got Basil.
Oh.
Second one I landed, the first one I landed was a little common little red mere thing that they threw in that meant, a tench would have meant more out of North Lake than that. It's like a stocky sort of thing. But I was looking in this net in the water, and I remember calling that Chris. He's come up, I said, I've got Basil here, mate. I said, just go and get Terry, go and get Rob or something, you know, on the Pads Lake bar. And off he's run. And I remember just standing there in the water, looking in the landing net with Basil, slightly rolled it one side and the other, and just thinking, oh my God, what have I just gone and done? You know, like Richie McDonald's caught that, Rob Malin's caught that, you know, Terry Peff, Jock White, you know, like just thinking of all these Yateley names that have caught this fish. And there it is, you know, and you can see my line going down to the hook stuck in its mouth, like, you know.
When does that actually
incredibly, the mouth of it, incredibly good from its captures, but you could see the odd, like, old bruise or, you know, not parroted or anything, but just old bruise marks from hooks and that, and you're just thinking, what's gone before is out now, you know, I've caught it. It's like, wow. I just caught 2 fish in little over a year, you know, Heather from the car park on the 6th of April the year before to Basil on the 27th of April the year after, less than 13 months. Like, wow.
That's I don't know. Does that ever sink in? It can't. Surely you can't register that for a period of time.
I still look, you know, I'm not one to live in the past, but when we're, obviously I've done this before with, say, Sipography or something. When you sort of look back at your angling history, it blows your mind a little bit, because I always think of the next bite and the next fish you're after. That's like what gets me out of bed in the morning. But yeah, I was sort of like, really, did I do that? You know? Yeah, I did. Got photos and hook links. I've even got a T-shirt with Yateley Legend written on it. But
you are a Yateley legend. Well,
but yeah, I mean, that moment stood in the water gazing at Basil in the landing net will never be forgotten. And then all of a sudden, up the footpaths comes a whole of Yateley sort of thing, you know, everyone off the Pads Lake, the Car Park Lake, the North Lake, are all winding in their rods and all that, like, you know, to come and see Basil, because that's what it was like then, you know.
That's the beauty of it.
It wasn't like, oh, has he?
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. It's like, oh, right, has he? It's like, we're going to see Basil, like 20 or 30 people there, you know.
That's incredible. The beauty of it, isn't it? That whole culture that was on that complex. And at the time, a lot of lakes, as you say.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
What was that like, having everybody around? Like, as you said before, you've talked about this sense of responsibility and wanting to get Carp back and not be, if you like, one that causes any damage.
Pretty much all you have to do, you know, the Yateley thing was the captor. All you had to do, really, once he'd stuck a net round a fish or whatever, was pick it up for the pictures, because everyone else done it for you after that. Everyone else looked after it. They rolled it up in the net, zeroed your sling, you know, weighed it, carried it up the bank to where you photographed it, opened it all up, covered it in water. All you had to do was pick it up for the photos and marvel at it, you know. It's like incredible fish care, you know.
Yeah. Everyone
wanted to help out on that, you know. I mean, Basil, I didn't weigh Basil in that weigh sling, so it was too small.
Yeah.
Like, one mum got me. I remember when she got me it all them years before, thinking, God, that's too big, Mum. You got me the large Kevin Nash, like happy hooker weigh sling, and I'll never feel that. And now I'm looking at a fish that's too big for it, sort of thing. And yeah, I borrowed Peter Bond's scales and weigh sling, you know, and Peter Bond still uses that weigh sling to this day as a doormat in his bivvy, and I always tell him off about it, but yeah, that's what it was like though. Everyone would help.
Yeah.
You know, I've got video footage and pictures. People like Jeff Pink there helping pour water on the fish, and Terry there sort of helping out, and, you know, and Derek Rance, you know, all the way in of it, and incredible buzz. Even, that's it, that is red card on the North Lake, and not carrying my gear up there for a 30-pounder afterwards, having called a big one and a couple of 20s. Not when there's a lake down there called the Pads Lake with a fish called Jumbo in it that goes 40 pounds. You know, bear in mind, I'm just caught my 40, 40. No one had ever caught that many 80 before. So that was mind blowing enough, and now I've got a chance fishing for a 5th one, Jumbo in the Pads Lake.
What did Basil go?
46.10.
46.10.
PB mirror at the time. Exactly a year to the day after I caught single scale out of the car park at £40
Knock us the rig, mate. You've definitely got that one, because I punished you for that one as you came in, mate.
Yeah, I can put my hand pretty much.
See, that is what I would say was your atypical.
Sure you ain't nicked it?
No, I guarantee you haven't nicked that, mate. Yateley rotary on lead core setup, mate.
That's it, yeah.
Just a braided hook length.
Yeah. 22-pound outcast, I think that was. Thin as anything. Just a dynamour.
mate.
Yeah, that's I think it's a size 12 owner spade. Strong as anything. Modern hooks are modelled on it, I think, these days. But yeah, 2 ounce lead and some lead core.
I like this gold. We'll overlay some pictures of this as well. But yeah, basically that little gold swivel, 2 beads on your lead core and your little dinky lead. That's just mega, isn't it? That is literally carp fishing history, mate, that rig wallet.
Yeah. It's good, isn't it?
You need to get that mounted in a frame with a picture of it. So you said there, red card, Basil, job done. Probably, you could have been a lifer on there, mate, for one fish.
Yeah.
It's not a walk in the park, but once again, a bit of magic's happened and you've caught the fish as well as good angling. Onto the pads.
Well, that is the good thing about the 80 thing. All them lads who come up to photograph the gear, quite a few of them, Rob and Gill and that lot. What do you want carrying? Whole position's free. So, yeah, before you know it, half your gear's taken from your swim and it's being delivered down the bank for you. What I've got to do is wrap up a few other bits and I'm fishing a different lake.
It was that non-slick that I remember, an iconic part of it that sticks in my head is when you were on some tiny little independent plane and the cameraman / director, which I didn't know at the time, has decided to film you crashing. He's rolled the camera. You're pretty much falling to your imminent death in the middle of the rainforest and he's thought, I'll crack the camera on. That couldn't have been... a sort of planned feature within that series at all.
Absolutely, he didn't know we were going to crash, but we were rolling at the time. So we'd arrived in this little town up an Amazon tributary on a single engine plane, and we wanted to do some aerial filming. So time and budget, we can do an hour of aerial filming, and in order to do that, it's a case of we took the side door off at the back. He's on the floor, strapped in, filming out the door, and again things have sort of changed a little bit now. Because of the slipstream and everything, he's pointing backwards, and then what you do is you run the film back, and it looks like you're going forwards. There's various sort of technicalities there, but so we had we got 3 cameras on board. I was in the passenger seat, and so I was sort of acting as a translator. So we've got myself, director, camera, and we've got one local guy who I know, who sort of knows the lie of the land, where the lakes and rivers and stuff are, and the pilot. And then I'm in the seat, and so we're flying around, we're filming stuff, and then and it's incredibly noisy because we've got the door off. There's just this rush of wind, and we're trying to have this sort of chain, the director says something, I ask him to say it again and pass it to the pilot, and anyway, we'd flown around for a little while, and then I heard them shouting like more lakes, we want to film lakes rather than the river. And so I turned round to my Brazilian friend Lauro, and I'm going, and what lakes are there around here? And he was saying, if just a bit further up here, there's one here off the side of the river. And so I'm then conveying this to the pilot. So I'm saying, we were quite low. I said, look, if we just climb a bit, we'll then get a good view of what's down there. And then as we did that, I just saw this little silver ribbon of water just open up in the forest. And so, okay, there's our lake. So to the pilot, what we want to do, we just want to get low and just come in over that. And then as we were approaching, there was this noise. It was a bit like someone opening a beer can, just like that, pop, and then immediately the plane just started rattling. It's just shaking, like someone's picked it up and they're shaking it, and it's like, there's just that moment where
what's going through your head there?
Well, what's interesting is it's just like, it's like that's not good, and then And then it's like, no, this is a serious problem. The pilot very quietly swore, and then he's actually just doing switches, God knows what, he's doing stuff there. And actually, one of my first thoughts was I need to sort of adopt the brace position, but because I'm in the co-pilot seat,
Right.
If I do that, I'm spreading myself over all these instruments and switches, and I might affect some vital setting. Therefore, I better just stay where I am. So I think I just clenched my buttocks and just like, there's nothing I can do. The best thing I can do is just sit here. One thing that's I'm not too proud of was that my. It did look serious. It's like we're coming down, and we haven't got much altitude. We've got very little time. Since then, I've done some flight training as a result of this, and in general, the higher you are, the better. The more chance you are. We're very low.
The higher you are, the better chance.
Yeah, because you put it into, as long as you're not on fire or something, you put it into a glide, and you can look down, pick a field, or see where the wind is. Take your time. I've even done I've done sort of exercises where, when I was doing flying training, the instructor would sort of lean across and go, right, engine's gone. They just shut the revs right off, and it's like, what are you going to do? And you do it as an exercise. But we had very, about 500 feet or something, so no time at all. So I was just, the thing that happened with me was that my thoughts. It was all about me, it wasn't like, it wasn't everybody else in the plane. It's like, am I going to survive? And my conscious thought was, it wasn't about sort of dying. I just thought, this is going to hurt. This is going to really hurt, And,
is that what it was?
Yeah. It's like, so and I'm just sitting in this seat, looking ahead of me, staring ahead, and we're getting lower, and my peripheral vision, I can just see the trees rising up, and it's like, right, any moment now. And then there was this, and the propeller in front of me, it's a single engine place, the propeller's in front of me, and slowly I'm starting to see the propeller. So, the propeller is basically stopping. We've got no power. And there was then this sound, and it was just like a flick. And what it was just the leaves at the top of a tree just brushing the underside of the plane, just this little flick, couple of seconds, flick, couple more seconds, flick, and then suddenly just everything goes dark. There's just foliage plastered over the screen in front, and then just it was like a bit like one of those ghost train rides by the seaside, where you're being thrown around and there's G-forces in every direction. It's like someone had just picked up the plane and was just shaking it. And so we're just, that's going on for a few seconds. And then suddenly there's this big crack and this impact. And I realized that we've actually come to a halt. And it's like, bloody hell, we stopped, and I'm still alive, and it doesn't hurt. And
this is get me a refund.
But then the very first breath that I took, it's like fuel. It's like I just breathed in, and it's like there's fuel. And at the same time, there's all this liquid coming down over my shoulders, and I'm thinking, God, I'm just getting covered in fuel. And so. And just the irony of that struck me then. I've just survived this impact, and we're going to go up in flames. So instantly, got to get out of the plane. And I'm trying to undo my harness, and I couldn't do that because I think we'd taken a bit of a side impact. So it's like I'm stuck in this harness. Okay, well, let's just open the door. I've got a door next to me. So I did that. And then while this is happening, it's all these things happening at the same time. While this is happening, this liquid, so it's pouring over my shoulders, but it's gradually coming up my legs, and it's coming up my legs, it gets to my knees, it's coming up my thighs, it's coming up my chest. I'm going, how can there be so much fuel on this plane? I just don't understand it. And then suddenly, I think one of the guys in the back, he's yelling out, agua, we're in water. Yeah. And like, we're in water, but we're going down. And we're in swamp underneath, and it's like, shit, I've got to get out of this, now. And luckily what happened is that I think the pilot, that's right, he then managed to, I had a knife on me, I was about to cut through the harness, he freed it. I got out, And it turned out that at that point, the plane had settled.
Right.
And so we all just...
bobbed out from the wreckage.
Yeah, and we all sort of regrouped on one of the wings. Yeah, so
what is that like? Everybody after, I mean, that is literally, you see your own death, you then regroup in the middle of a swamp on a half sunken aeroplane wing. I can't even compute that in my head.
Well,
What's
I
that feeling like?
I think lots of people ask this, sort of what did it feel like? Did you think you were going to die? And I think it sort of happened so quickly. So it was there wasn't time to process it at the time. It just happened. And one thing that was very interesting, going back to what you were saying at the beginning, is that in the course of that, 2 of our cameras were destroyed, but one camera carried on rolling. So we had this one camera, which is actually recording the whole thing. And I don't know, as far as I know, that doesn't exist anywhere else, actually filming a plane crashing from inside the plane and then walking away from it, So, and so later that day, the director, he's already watched it. And he says to me, he says, do you want to watch the footage? And I went, yeah. So I suppose I. And at that point, I was still quite. It hadn't really hit me. Do you know what I mean? It was because we had to be sort of rescued and find our way back to the town and all the rest of it. But so anyway, okay, I suppose we better watch it. And he said, right, before you watch it, how long do you think it was between that pop and when we actually when we hit the trees? And I went, oh. And we had our Brazilian guide with us as well. I said to him, what do you how long was that? And we sort of thought, it was about 3 or 4 minutes. And he said, we thought it was about that as well. Anyway, we watched the footage, and it was 14 seconds.
Jeez.
So it's that thing of where lots going on, how time. Well, there's just so much mental input there that the time sort of expands. I mean, it's just a very interesting psychological thing, really interesting. So, and then in terms of what I actually thought about it, that almost hit me later on. It hit me later on. I had to do one thing that we were doing during in that shoot was occasional video diary where what would happen would be just here and there I would just talk to the camera, and that's more of a sort of the purpose of that. It's more the emotional journey. It's how I'm feeling about this, whatever. And I thought, I better do a video diary about this.
I remember that.
And so I sat down and I'm talking to the camera about what happened. And I think I got to the point where my Brazilian friend Lauro, who'd come with us, who hates flying, but we persuaded him at the last minute, come along, we've got a spare place, it'll be great. And anyway, he came with us. And we found out later that some people in the town they'd seen the plane going down. They knew it had crashed, and they told his wife that he was dead. And it was like so when I'm doing this video diary, and there's something about putting things into words. Words are just so powerful, and it got to the point I just couldn't continue, and I found I was crying. And it was like it was sudden. Suddenly this whole thing has hit me. So I recorded this. And I just and I stopped the recording, and I thought, God, what do I could delete that. It's that is me, falling apart.
It's rawest, isn't it?
Exactly, and it's like, and again, it's one of those moments where no, I'm going to trust the process. I'm just going to leave that there.
If I was to go to casting tomorrow, you'd definitely be one of my first texts, mate. But talk to me about, because that is the scene of your first 50-pounder. Talk to me about that and how that all unfolded.
Yeah, well, the previous year, which was 1985, that's when I'd been abroad for the very first time. Me Yellow Mark III Cortina had gone down to Cassian, and like I say, you know, it was going to be my only trip, but I fell in love with the place. And at the time, I was fishing Darrant Flakes, and the guy I was fishing with, Pete Noonan, at the time, he had never been abroad or anything like that. But I took, you know, the first thing I did was race down to Darrant, showed him all the pictures, and I said, you've got to go there. We've got to go there next year. You know, you've got to have a trip. It's amazing. And, excuse me. And he said, yeah, all right, I've got a minivan. You know, we go in my minivan, you know, it's all souped up engine, 1275 engine or something. The van, it was a nightmare, but come to that. So we arranged the following May to go down there in Pete's minivan. He wasn't sure about it at all. You know, it was such a big adventure. It was a big adventure in those days. I know we touched on it with Alfie last time that, you know, there was no internet or sat-navs or anything. It was just a map. And, you know, what we had was very basic then. And Pete, the very evening we was going to go, Pete turned up, and we sort of managed to get all our gear in there. I mean, it was literally a little minivan. It was tiny, when I think of it now. But we got our gear in there, and then he handed me a big screwdriver. And I thought, what's that for? And he said, well, you have to hold the front of the starter motor on through the grill at the front to start the engine. Oh, so, no. Yeah, and literally every time we had to start the engine, I had to do this wherever we were. And that was the start of it, you know, and I thought, oh, no. And I'd advised him, in those days you could get AA 5-star cover, which was, you know, you wanted to be covered. Well, Pete, you know, he was a great angler and all that, but he was as tight as anything. So he never got the 5-star cover or anything. And before we'd even got to Paris, the fan belt had snapped. And we had to get towed into a garage and get a new fan belt. And that was like an overnight stop. And that was the start of the problems with the van. It constantly overheated all the way down. So we was flagging down lorries so we run out of water and everything. We was flagging down lorries and cars to get water off them. And in the end, we undid the radiator cap so many times that the top actually snapped off. Literally snapped off. So that was another trip to the garage, and they brazed it on. But it got us there. Do you know what I mean? It did get us there. And, you know, because I'd been there once and I'd fished up the North Arm, and that was brilliant. It was brilliant. I loved the North Arm. It was big and it was open, and I loved that expanse of water. But this trip was in May, so I had it in mind that the fish were going to be sort of heading towards the spawning areas down the West Arm. And normally, every year, the spawning bay was closed. Now they close the whole of the West Arm every year. But we got there and we started fishing up the top end of the West Arm, because I'd seen some German guys. They'd had a couple of good fish there the year before. Anyway, like 3 days in, we caught nothing, absolutely nothing. And one day, this little boat came up, and an English guy was in it, you know, and he sort of shouted across, you know, you caught anything? And I said, nothing, I haven't seen anything. He said, oh, you know, I've had a couple of sort of low 20-pound commons down in the spawning bay. He said, the spawning bay's open. I thought, hey, open? Oh. He said, yeah, for some reason, it's open this year, you know, for whatever reason, they haven't closed it. So I thought, oh, right. The main thing was he'd caught 2 fish. So the first thing we did, as soon as he'd gone, got in the boat, rowed down to have a look, and there was no one there, absolutely no one there. And there's this huge bay, no anglers, and he caught 2 fish, so we moved down there straight away. And it was quite strange, because all I knew about Cassian, it was very deep. Normally, where I'd fished at North Farm, well, the spawning bay was very shallow. We went out all around. It was only like 3 foot deep, and you could see all around. There was nothing there. Do you know what I mean? You could see the bottom, and you think, oh, I don't know about this. But, you know, he'd caught a couple of fish down there, so it had to be worth a go. So we set up anyway, and it was my first experience of fishing a lake with crayfish. You know, the previous year I'd taken sort of normal boilies, what I use, and they all got annihilated by the crayfish. So we ended up using peanuts, which worked well. But for this trip, I'd sort of planned to make some really big, hard hook baits. You know, I'd never used big hook baits before, you know, like 14, 15 mils were sort of top whack for Darrant or whatever.
Yeah.
But we rolled up these Scopex, they were, and, you know, probably 30 mil hook bait, something like that, you know, which were like
donkey chokers.
Yeah, donkey chokers in those days, with a view to sort of, you know, combating the crayfish or whatever, which they did perfectly, actually. So, you know, I mean, like big leads for those days were like, I suppose a 4 ounce lead was huge in those days, and these big baits, we was never going to cast them out because, I mean, because of the gear we had in those days, you know, my rods back then were 11 foot 1 3/4, you know, and for sort of tackling Cassian, you know, I was never going to cast out these big things. So it was the first experience of rowing baits out, if you like. So, you know, one of us would stand on the bank with the rods, and the other one would row out to the reed beds, basically, on the far side of this bay.
How were you with the rowing? Like first time in a boat and mastering it? I was terrible, mate. Took me a long time.
Actually.
Were you?
Yeah, I was okay. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, probably I'd done it a couple of times when I was a kid, you know, on park lakes or whatever. But it was okay. Yeah, I never had any problems. Like, I remember going with Joan, and to this day, she has trouble rowing a boat. She goes around in circles, basically. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was always okay in boats. Always felt quite sort of natural in a boat,
right?
And I've always enjoyed the boat side of fishing. You know, I've always enjoyed that, being out on the lake, and you see so much from a boat. You know, there's so much you can see from a boat that you don't see from the bank, and yeah, I enjoyed that side of it. I love that side of it. So yeah, that was another part of it. But that was the first time I'd ever done it, actually taking the baits out in that way. Yeah, and you know, just that presentation you get. But I do remember that it felt weird going out to those reed beds where it was like 3 foot deep, nothing there, and you're baiting up thinking, are we going to get anything here? Do you know? Well, you know, I did. The first night I had a 28 pound mirror, put it in the sack, and it got out the sack in the, you know, before the morning, it was gone. You know, so
dodgy Nash carp sack, was it?
You know, I forget whose sack it was. It was one of those with, you know, the drawstring, you pull it up, and the little plastic tag. Yeah, I guess I hadn't used, most of the places I fished, we weren't allowed to use sacks, so I didn't use them. In the end, you learnt that you had to tie a knot round the top. But yeah, I was gutted. You know, first fish, and I thought it might be the only fish. Yeah, it was gone in the morning. So yeah, that was really disappointing. So, but what can you do? You know, at least I caught one, I suppose. Yeah. But the main thing was, you know, like, from not seeing anything, obviously fish were going in there. And so the next night, you know, got the rods all back in position and all that. And it was probably, I don't know, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. It's gone off. And, you know, even though it's only little 1 3/4 rods, like, hook this fish and it's coming away from the reeds all right. And we got in the boat, me and Pete got in the boat because we was worried about it kiting through other lines more than anything else. You know, it's quite shallow, and the last thing we wanted to do was wipe out all the other rods. And just remember this fish rolling on the top in the darkness, and it was like really deep. You know, I'd never heard a fish sound like that. And Pete said, "That sounds like a good one." And I thought, blimey, yeah. And I can't remember. I mean, it was a plodding fight, you know, but I mean, in the fairly shallow water, it wasn't a long fight. Just remember getting this fish in the net, and not really realising what we'd got at the time. So we got back to the bank, and, you know, it's that old story, you know, I was thinking £40. I'd caught a 40 on the previous trip, and I was thinking it's got to be around that sort of size, you know, bearing in mind there was no torches or anything like that because there was no night fishing on Cassian. So, you know, everything...
Stealth.
Stealth, basically. And, you know, people always tell you those stories. That, I went to lift it out and I thought the net was snagged. And, yeah, it was a weird feeling because, you know, I went to lift it and it didn't move sort of thing. And I needed that extra, bloody hell. And then we put it on the bank, and I thought, you know, it just looked like there was carp everywhere. You know, it was just so big. I've never seen anything like it. It was just so big. It was unbelievable.
What was the biggest fish you'd sort of seen before that? You've had your 40 the previous session. Was that the biggest one?
That was it, basically. Yeah, a German guy had caught a 45. My one was 43 and a half. So they were the biggest fish I'd seen. And this one, I thought, well, that's just much bigger than them, sort of thing. You know, it's just huge. It really was huge. But, you know, whether it's a premonition, you know, you remember they were the big happy hooker scales, I suppose, the ones that went up to, what did they go up to? £112, I think. You know, they did £60. I think it was £60 or 56, might have been 56 or 112. And I bought them just for that trip. And I bought the 112 ones. And I remember the guy in the shop saying, blimey, you're open a bit. Well, you know, what's wrong with 56?
We don't sell many of these, boys.
And, you know, it's just as well, because the 56s weren't enough. It was 61 and a half. Yeah, and, you know, like second trip away when I've only ever caught 140 in my life. And a 30, you know, I've had a handful of 30s in England. And here's one like twice the size. And it was just humongous. It really was. It was huge. It blew me away. And Pete as well. You know, I remember Pete was just looking at that and he said, God, I want one of those. I really want one of those.
Reference there, you said people going through your bait bucket saying, are you using Summit? Da, 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 da. There's been loads of talk around the world of sort of especially busy day ticket anglers and anglers that are proficient in catching numbers of fish on those type of waters. There's been loads of talk about the use of potentially hormones, additives, etc. to boost their catches. There was a phase of everybody talking about natural baits. There's a phase now of people rumouring to have access to such things. I'm just going to ask you out. I'm normally quite on the fence, but anything like that you've used in your angling to get an edge or whatever with regards to these hits? Because it is, like you said there, 41 fish from Kingy is ridiculous, mate.
What are you asking me?
Well, I'm asking you, is there something that you have or that you use that is not necessarily publicised, you may not have ever talked about it before, that gives you an edge bait-wise on these type of venues?
I think you mentioned hormones. Now, I'm going to get something quite straight. Now, this is something that cropped up that Bart said to me a couple of months ago. He said, oh, they think you're using hormones. Your name's come up. I'm like, what? What are you even on about? And he rattled off some, I haven't got a clue what he was talking about. He rattled off some names of some hormone stuff.
I've replied that. That's why I've said hormones.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. So he rattled off some names, and I said, I've never even heard of it. I haven't got a clue what you're on about, and I've never even heard of these things that you're talking about. And yeah, well, rumor is that that's what you're using. And I said, no, we all have our edges, but trust me, I've not got anything hormones that are illegal, I would imagine. And like and I hope no one uses anything like that, because it's not readily available or legal, is it? At the end of the day, like you can't be putting in stuff that's untested. That's, you know, yeah. So I don't quite know with that. I first heard of that probably 2 or 3 months ago. From Bart, said that, look, this is what people are saying. No one's ever sort of directly asked me that before. You're the first person to actually ask me that question.
Sorry, mate.
As for edges, there might be, you know, there's possibly things out there that may help liquid wise.
So there is something, Mr. Hewitt, because you've been very non-coy in answering that. I look at it like, I know you're a fantastic. The church is a classic example, right? And I will say this blatantly on the podcast. There are anglers that fish the church that are brilliant anglers. There are anglers that fish the church that may not be as good anglers, okay? There are results that you'll see from good anglers, and you can see the good anglers' results are better than the others. But then there's results like you've just had over 8 days, and I know the conditions are good, but good anglers have been on there with conditions that are good. And in 2 nights fishing, you've had 8 bites. You've had a 40. You've had a lot of 30s, okay? That, for me, there's no doubt in you're a great angler. But that is over and above what I would deem a realistic expectation in normal angling context for a good angler.
So what's the question?
So the question is there something or what additionally gives you that edge? Not saying that it's not you being a great angler and it's all down to this, because that's not the case. I know that for a fact, but there's got to be something.
Gosh, I've never really been asked this. Possibly. There might be stuff.
Can you elaborate?
Obviously, I feel like I fished well this weekend to catch those fish, but there are things that you can use that, you know, give you an edge over others. There always has been in carp fishing, you know, but like I said, I experiment a lot, and in recent times, I have got something that I do feel gives me an edge, without a doubt.
Right. Liquid form? Solid bait form?
Well, my bait's my bait, but there's things that there are things out there that, I mean, there's so many liquids out there, but there are stuff that we could say is not used.
Okay.
There's stuff that you probably wouldn't associate. Well, you wouldn't associate with carp fishing in carp. You know, I played around with a lot of things over time. You know, you're always looking for an edge, and there possibly is stuff out there that's, you know, not in the fishing market.
So this is used on your bait or within the bait mix itself? Is it a liquid? Because you've sort of hinted liquid a couple of times.
Let's just get this straight. So if I've got something and I just gave it to anyone now, it wouldn't make an odds difference.
Yeah.
But there's things you can do to make things better. And if you experiment enough, and I've experimented with things for a long, long time, and there's things that can definitely, in my mind, give you an edge that will make carp feed better. But there's so much more to it. Like, yes, I've got stuff that I use that's not known about, but I couldn't just give that to you and you go and club 8 loads of fish out. It's just doesn't work like that.
No,
you still got to figure out what you're doing, how to use it, what to mix and that sort of thing. So there are things out there that, like, I've probably already said too much because it's not something that I ever talk about. Like, if people ask me, I don't know, you've caught me off guard here a little bit. I didn't expect this at all.
Mate.
But I think everyone probably has their edges, and mine's at this moment in time just works. And I'm not obviously going to give too much away because it won't become an edge. You know, over the years, I've given away everything, mate. Everything, you know, when I've done all my films, magazine features, everything I've ever learned. And you look at like I referenced earlier with linear, I was doing it early days free on a spot. It wasn't done. And now everyone does it. So if I sit here and tell you, do this, 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 and this, and you're going to catch shed loads of 40s, everyone's going to go and do it. And then it's not going to work, is it?
So I've gone down there, tiny little lake, really intimate, maybe 2.5, 3 acres, little island. And I said, all right. He said, I said, how many are in? He said, I've got 34 carp. He was quite exact. You know what I mean? It's 34 carp in here. He said, James's is the big one. He said, that's 45. Terry Earn had caught it that week. Yeah. Actually, Terry Earn had caught the fish that week. And he said, Terry had it last week. It won't come out now till October. It's a very regimented fish. And I went, all right. And he goes, yeah, blah, blah. And he's talking away. What am I trying to tell you? So that's when I found out it was 20 members, actually. And I thought, 20 members, nothing. You know what I mean? So I've gone down there and I've started fishing it. And I sort of hit the ground running. First session, I caught this 27-pound ghosty mirror, really nice fish. Like, caught that. I was happy just to get one. You know, like first
get off the mark.
Yeah, I've been at the lake, I swear, right, 3 minutes and the rod went. I couldn't believe it. And I had this 27-pound
What,
fish.
had you seen fish show or you?
I'd walked round and there was some fish patrolling up and down some weed.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to put a chod there. So I flicked this chod out, put the rod down, no other rods, and I thought, I'll get the bivvy up because there was a deep margin. They were coming up and down. So I flicked it, I flicked it into this weedy area. As I'm sorting out my gear, the rod's gone and I've had this 27-pound ghosty. Anyway, subsequently, never got another bite that session. I only done a night. I'm still on a night a week, you know.
Yeah.
Really pleased. Let me move that there. And, really pleased with the fish. Come back a week later, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, how can I do something different on here? There's not a lot of people fishing it. The South African guy and another guy, funnily enough, both have had it before. You know, the big one, you're thinking, do one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you've done it.
Yeah, and I thought, what should I do? So I thought, I can't remember what I had that session, but I didn't have a blank, so I know I had something, right?
Okay.
So I had a fish, and then I'm at home the week, and I said about when I go home and your brain's tick, tick, tick.
Yeah,
I thought, I'm going to use hemp, right? I ain't used hemp in a long time at the moment. I'm going to use a load of hemp. So I went and bought 2 sacks of hemp, and I boiled up a sack, right? And this lake, one day I was on there, I was spodding, and Cole, this was on the last session, phoned me up, he went, Dave, you spodding? I said, yeah, mate. He said, we don't like that on here. He said, basically, do you know the rowing boat? I went, yeah. He went, you can use that. Just drop your bait in. I said, definitely. Thanks, mate.
Oh, mate, really?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So I've put the
saves me a lot of ag.
So the next week I've come down on a day I'm not fishing and I've put 2 massive buckets of hemp, right? Big old buckets, both on the same spot.
Yeah.
Against a dead tree that fishes probably the longest chuck on the lake, which is only, I think it's 12 wraps.
Okay.
Come back to fish, and the South African bloke's in the swim where I put the bait. I'm like, shit. I said, all right, mate, how you getting on? And he said, I've had 6. I've had 6 this session fishing that dead tree. I was like, shit, that really works. You know what I mean? I've got a load of hemp with me.
But he's not had the big one.
No, he's not had the big one, right? He's got I've had 6 bites. He's over the moon. He went, funny enough, though, I've been here 48 hours. He went, they all came in the first 24 hours. And I thought, that's because I've cleared you out, mate. That's gone. So I went round the other side and there was a little bush on the side of an island that overhung. And I thought, I'm going to bait that. So I've gone out in the boat. And as I'm going out in the boat, there's some fish sat in the weed. And I spotted one. They're called Nemo. Big plates on him. Another one that's a fully scaled. And I ain't spooking because they're in thick weed. And I've tipped this hemp. In my book, I've got a photo, right, of what these fish done to this area. And I've tipped these 2 buckets. Within about an hour and a half, it was mud. But there's 34 carp in it.
Yeah.
And over the course of 24 hours, I had 6 fish, including the fully scaled and Nemo. And
amongst all that weed?
No.
Or was there a spot?
They basically were sat in the weed, but obviously they're coming out the weed, and the first thing they're hitting is this overhanging bush.
Okay.
It's like the first bit of open where there's no weed.
Yeah.
But I'm hooking these fish, and they're bolting back in the weed, and I'm getting in them. The only one I went in the boat for was Nemo. I went out, and it was funny because I'd had quite a few fish, and this guy was sitting there. I can't remember his Steve, the painter, they called him. He's sitting there talking to me, and I went, my next fish is Nemo. He went, what makes you think that? And I said, well, it was sat with a fully scaled, and I've just caught fully scaled, which was, that's £40 that fully scaled now. But then it was 23.
It's cracking fish.
Yeah. A mate of mine had it the other week. Aaron, the tattooist, had it the other week, £43. But yeah, so I'm sat there. The rod's gone, and this fish has absolutely steamed the weed. We've got in a boat, like no one of them fish. It's just an animal.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got it in, if I'm honest. And eventually, this guy, I'm going to the guy at the net. Don't panic. I'm trying to calm him down because he's going, it's Nemo. And I said, just don't panic. And he's got the net under it. Anyway, we've got in. It's 37.12 or something like that.
Right.
Massive, a mega carp. Big plates all over him. Just a wicked carp. And I'm over the moon, you know what I mean? I thought, I've cracked this.
Yeah.
No one's seen me put this hemp in. I'm going to absolutely take this place apart, you know, and you got that in your head, confident. Yeah. Cut a long story short, over the next few weeks, I'm only doing one night every time. I'm going down, I'm having 2 or 3 fish every time. Come to October the 8th, I think it was, I was on 22 fish in 9 nights. Like,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'd had a couple of 35s, the 37, some really beautiful 28s, and I was just having it off, really. They were really hungry carp, like. Yeah. And the spot that I was baiting on the tree had actually got literally an entire foot deeper. Where I'd baited it so heavy, they were just burrowing it out.
Yeah, gouged the bottom out.
There was a young lad on there. He'd caught that fish twice, right, over the years. A lad called Nathan. One of these kids, you know, he's a teenager, never got any money, never got any bait. And he went, yeah, I've never got any bait. I caught it twice on a single. And he said it loves a single. It's been out about 4 times on a single. Bear in mind, it ain't been out now since, I think, the start of June, like, and it's a weird carp. You never see it in the water. Not once. The whole time I was there did I see that carp, Jamie's fish, in the water. It blends into its environment brilliantly, like.
Right.
And so this day, I've got set up. I had a 20, and then that night, about 1 in the morning, I'm laying there, and the rod's gone. Beep, 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 run down. Side strain. I'm on braid. I know, I'm on 15-pounder calder line, that tough shit. So it's just tearing line, this fish. And it goes, boom, comes off. Oh, no way. It was my first hook pull out of like 20 odd bites. I've reeled in and my hook is in half. It's just snapped the hook.
What hook was it? Curve?
It's a wide gape, right?
Oh my God.
In testament to them hooks, I don't know. I'll say I've had 1,000 carp on the hooks.
Yeah.
Never snapped one. It was, and when it come off, I sat there and you know, I think that was the big one. And I thought, was it the big one? And then I thought, do you know, have you ever caught a fish twice and thought, I knew it was that fish because of the way it fought? And
no.
After, I actually thought that was Nemo. When I hooked it the first time, you don't hook many fish that have got that kind of power. Yeah. They're just that animalistic, like they just tear. And I thought, that was that Nemo, that was, you know what I mean? And suddenly the pressure was off. I thought, I've just lost one I caught. Yeah.
He's all right.
Even though it's it, I just knew, right? So I went back up some bivvy. I'm setting the rig up, and on the bush that I'm baiting, right, this fish just goes. I tell you what, it was like the king of the lake had spoken, right?
Yeah.
All the coots on the lake went, they're all squawking. It's like these ripples have come back to the margin. And I thought, that was the big one. 100%. All the hairs are up on my neck. I'm like, fuck, got a rod sorted out. It's 7 wraps, this spot. Cast it in the dark. You can go out and just put it out in the boat, but I cast it in the dark. Plum, and I thought, that's on it. Put the rod down. Hour later, what's that? Oh my God, I'm going to have it. It ain't been out in months and months. I'm having it. Like, I'm rubbing my hands. Nothing. I thought, it's in there. Daylight's come. Morning bite time's gone. And I thought, it's in there. It's in this bay. It's going to come out. I've gone home, right? And at the time I was with Tracker and they were doing a shoot the next day.
Okay.
So I've gone home. That night I've texted Jerry Bridger and I said, Joe, I can't come tomorrow, mate. And he went, he'll put in bivvies up. We're doing photos. I said, Joe, I can't come, mate. I said, I've heard a fish. It was either Jerry or Dave. It was one or two. I said, I've heard this fish jump in a bay. It ain't been out in months. I said, the next person that goes in that bay is going to catch that fish. And he went, you're not coming to the photo shoot because, I said, listen, Daryl and Tom Dover come in. They're much prettier than me. You know what I mean? Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And he's gone, all right, mate. You could tell he had a bit of the ump lights. So I've got down the lake in the morning, really early. And only like, shit, please, no one be in there.
Yeah, I hate that feeling.
Got there, got my big bucket of hemp, gone round, got the rods in the swim. I've got the rowing boat, right? I've put the hemp in the boat, got a rod because I'm gonna lower it in on the bush. Gone out there. I've lowered this in and it's on the drop down rig with the weights in it.
Yeah.
I've dropped him down, boom. It's hit the hard bottom. I've gone like that and I've gone to scoop this hemp and I remembered Nathan and I thought, single hook bait. I don't know how I done it. I took about 10 grains of hemp and went, I just hit water. And I went back, right, and I put the rod on the rest, and I'm sat there, and I got a bit of a liner, like, did. Like that, and I'm sat there, my phone's gone. And I often sit there listening to music on a set of headphones, you know.
Oh, dear.
I'm sitting there listening, I think it was Guns N' Roses, right? I'm sitting there listening, phone goes, and it's my mate Jeff. Jeff goes, all right, mate, how's it going? You had it? And I said, mate, I'm telling you, it's in it. I just know it. The atmosphere's electric. It's coming out, mate. So he goes, yeah, well, you might get in. He's gone, beep, 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 beep. He went, that's the big one. He's joking around. He's gone, doop, and he's just sat at the top, wobbling, it's bobbing. I've gone, it's a take. And I've picked up the rod, and it's going to the back of this bay where there's all them tiny little lilies. It's going towards them, like, and it's probably done about 4 or 5 wraps, just taking, like, I cannot hold it. And as it got to the back, I started to see the lilies go, doop, ooh, doop, and as it's getting, and I thought, I can't have it. I'd rather have a hook pull than lose it in them pads. And I've gone, slammed down, and it's coming around this bay, and as it's coming around, it's just dipping lilies all the way down like that to like tease me. I'm thinking, don't come off, like, please. I'm thinking, what is it? And as it comes past me, it just come up, because he's nearly 4 foot long. This mirror with big plates, 4 foot long, just comes past me in front, like, and the rod is hooped. And at that point, my mate Jeff went, is it the big one? He's still in my earphones. Yeah, and I went, it's the big one. He went, I'm going. And he put the phone down on me. And this fish has gone over this like shallow bar and down, just taking on. And I've managed to turn him, but he's gone out into a sort of a main area that's 15 foot, so he's got water over him. And then he turned, and as he come up, I could see like our fish twist.
Yeah.
He's so long, and he twisted. And as he come round, I netted him, and his nose was on my spreader block, and his tail was still a foot out the net.
That's horrible. Yeah,
and I just folded him in. You know what I mean? As he folded him in, right, I don't often do it. I fucking screamed. I'm the only one there. And I went, fucking yes! And all the coots on the lake went, I flew round. I was like, yeah, it was mega. And I was like, I fucking got it. I got it. And the maddest thing was,
some fish.
Yeah, the phone went, dee, 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 dee. And I looked, it was my mate called James.
What was that?
And he went, all right, mate. I went, I've got it. And he went, I'm on my way. That was it, like, yeah. So my mate James come and photographed it for me. But like, a most extraordinary weird carp, got stocked at £4 12 ounces. 6 years later, no, I'm wrong. 4 years later was a 40. 6 years later was a mid 40. 8 years, 9 years, £50.
So I had 6 carp, and I'd not had one of the 18. And I was thinking my time's starting to run out. It's mid-August. Some of the other guys were jumping on the bait because they'd seen the fish that I was doing.
Yeah.
People were fishing on my spots. So I was losing ground. I'd had a big edge. My edge was sliding away from me because other anglers were jumping onto my methods and what I was doing, you know, piling the bait in on these shallow bars. Well, they're still not shallow, there's 12-foot water on them, but shallower bars. Anyway, on my 4th session, I got there and the weed was horrendous. It was literally touching the surface. And I went round to all the spots that I'd been fishing and I couldn't get a lead on the bottom. The weed had literally grown over the bars. It got so high. We'd had a bit of hot weather. And it took me all day to find a spot. And the spot that I found was literally 15 yards from the bank. It was that close. But I got the lead went down. I felt the lead go. I pulled back. It was nice and clear. And I thought, that's it. That's all I've got. The only option I've got. So I piled in a load of bait again. Another big bait making session on the bank. Fired it all out onto the spot. You know, 2 rods on there, both trammed up, literally 2 foot apart. That's how I fished.
Rig-wise, what were your rigs at this point?
I was using, like, as I said, the sort of the whipping knot with the hair off the end. I think I was using Dacron, but I think, funny enough, I think Kevin brought out Gamma Braid that year, and I was using, that was the first year that we pretty much had a different type of
hook length.
Yeah, braided hook link, apart from Dacron, which was a bit thin, really. Dacron could break, and this stuff was a bit... So I was using a bit of a mixture of Dacron and Gamma Braid that year, because I remember that first coming out. But my hooks were still the Kamazan, or Komatsu in them days, I think they were called, which was a super sharpened hooks. That's what I was using up there. And I was just using running leads, 2 ounce pair lead, running with a bead. And that was it, you know. So anyway, I found my spots. I got my drop. I got all my bait in the area, and I remember for 3 days, every morning I see a big fish come out on my spot every morning for 3 days over this big bed of bait, but not a touch. I reckon they'd cleaned me out. I probably was nothing there. So on the 4th day, I rolled another lot of bait, but this time I went for it. I started rolling really small baits, like sort of 12, 14 millers, and I spent all day rolling these tiny baits,
All
really
hand-rolled?
small, all hand rolled, 2 at a time, and they really worked hard to get this better bait. Anyway, I could fit like 10 or 20 in a catty. That's how small they was, and I sprayed it all over this little close bar at 15 yards, and really piled it in. And the next morning, I see another big fish come over it, so they were on me. And I think it was on the 6th morning, the following morning, I was sitting there and I thought, you know what, I'm going to roll because it had gone quiet and my spot had gone dead. I hadn't seen a fish all morning. It was the first morning I hadn't seen a fish and my spot was totally dead. And all of a sudden I had 2 bleeps and I looked up and I always remember I see the tip just slowly bending over. And I was using Cardinal 155s at the time. And then I think there was like 3 little ticks off the clutch. And I jumped up, picked the rod up, and I just felt this really heavy lunge on the end. And it just took a load of line off of me, probably 10 metres of line, and went solid in the weed. Went totally solid in the weed. So I pulled and pulled, nothing. Put the rod down and started getting really nervous, thinking this is probably my only chance of the year that I might get, you know, because I could see time was slipping away, you know, and it was a rock hard lake. So I sat there for probably 20 minutes and nothing happened. That rod didn't happen, nothing. So I jumped up and I started really pulling it, giving it a bit extra and seeing if I could get it moving and really like sort of putting the test curve into the rod. I was only using soft rods. I was using 26 ounce Bruce and Walkers that year, which are £1 10 ounce test curve Bruce and Walkers, you know, on really weedy lakes. So you can imagine what that was bending like. So anyway, I got this weed bed moving eventually. And this weed bed was coming in inch by inch. And you know the Canadian, when it rips off at the bottom and it's just like this massive bunch.
Yeah, it's like
and you've got all the roots and it's like 10 foot tall. So I'm getting this massive bunch of Canadian. Anyway, this bed of weed is so big, it's filled the whole front of my swim. And I thought this fish is probably gone anyway. Yeah. It's probably gone. So I'm nervous, I'm shaking. I've thrown my rod on the floor and I start ripping all this weed apart. This Canadian apart. All of a sudden, I see the biggest carp I've ever seen in my life in there. Big black thing, you know, with all scaled and a big orange belly, and it just powered out the weed through the other side. So my line's going through this weed. Now this fish is out in the open water, kiting around, going mad, like really trying to get away. So it was absolute carnage. So anyway, I couldn't net it. It just was impossible to net because the weed was so bad. So I jumped in the lake with my net. And what I tried to do was handline it handline it up into the weed a little bit. And that wasn't working. And I got the rod again and I pumped it into the weed. And then it was just, this was going on for ages. Anyway, eventually the fish got stuck in the top of the weed. It just got stuck and it was sitting there with this big back out. So I threw the rod, dropped the rod, got the net and just started pushing as hard as I could. Now I'm treading water in 10 foot of water here. Treading water.
So you're not even got feet on the bottom?
No, I'm 10 foot of water and I'm treading water. So I eventually get the arms of the landing net around this massive big bronze black mirror that's in the middle of the net. So now, as soon as them arms around it, I start screaming for help because time was running out. I was in the weed. I was drowning.
Down.
The fish was there. And there was a guy fishing on the other side whose name was Peter, who used to be in a famous band called Motley Hoople in the 70s. And there's a really famous record they sung, All the Young Dudes, which I'm sure we've all heard and your mum and dad would all know and that. So he was a rock star, this guy, and he used to fish Longfield. And he used to fish with pink rods. And his bivvy was a TARDIS, and he had a leopard skin
Like ground sheet.
Ground sheet, yeah.
That is rock and roll, isn't
And
it?
he had platform shoes and long hair, and his carp jacket was like some sort of purple two-tone thing.
What a boy.
He was such a character, and I started screaming for his help. He was fishing right on the other side, and he must have heard me because he come running round and he dragged me out the lake and by the landing net pole. So he grabbed the landing net pole, dragged me, because I was still holding the ribs.
Yeah, you ain't letting that go, are you?
No. So anyway, I'm still holding the landing net around this fish. So anyway, he's dragged me in. I've looked at the fish and know straight away it's the big one, Jack the Net Ripper.
Yeah.
So we've hoisted it onto the bank. We weighed it 42 pounds.
Oh my God.
So massive, obviously beat my Hainault, my personal best from Hainault easily. Put it in the carp sack, and I swum it right down the margins, down into deep water, and tied it to a root so no one could get it. So no one could get near this fish, even though I knew Peter, but I just didn't want to leave that fish.
Who might get it?
So, yeah. That's how it was, though, you know.
Was it pretty bad?
Yeah, it wasn't so much at Longfield, you know, but in the past I'd heard of, you know, not Longfield, it wouldn't have happened there, but in the past I'd heard about fish getting away and people taking fish out of sacks and stuff. God. So this is my prize of my life. Yeah. I know that. So I made sure it's totally secure, right out of the way, swum it down underwater.
You mad.
Tiny, yeah.
You are mad.
Literally, that's gospel truth. And in them days, I didn't have a phone. I didn't even have a camera at that year, because my camera I dropped in the tip lake the winter previous. No. It fell in the lake, yeah. So I didn't have a camera. So what I'd done is I asked Peter to stay with me tackle. I did this fish up anyway. No one was finding the fish. And I said to Pete, look, I ain't going to be long, because Peter had a good camera. But I said, I'd like to go and get a couple of my mates down who know what they're doing. Like, I didn't want to say it to Peter, but my mates knew what they were doing with cameras, you know, and... So what I've done is I've run all the way to the phone box, which was a mile, like a good mile down the road. So I've run as fast as I could, and I phoned my nan's house, and I asked for my dad, and my dad weren't in at the time. And I said to my nan, if you see him, tell him to go to Hainault Forest, get anyone with a camera who's one of my mates, and get them straight down here. I've got the biggest fish, one of the biggest carp in the country. They've got to come.
What a phone call.
Yeah, so... When I left the phone box, as I was walking back, Chris Ball pulled up. He pulled up and he said, what you doing? Because he could see that I was flustered. And I said, I'd had one. And he went, I know. But the day before, I'd caught one off the top.
Yeah.
I caught a little common off the top. And I think his friend Jan had told him.
And he thought it was that one.
And he thought it was that one. And I said, no, I've had another one. And he's like, you're joking. What you had now? And I said, I've got the big one in the net, 42. And he's like, unbelievable. And as luck had it, Chris had his video camera in his car, and I got a video. Chris also had photographs, done some photographs for me, but Peter's photographs come out brilliant as well. Peter had a state-of-the-art camera, so I ended up with really good photographs and a video of it. And
what a fish, man.
And just after I put it back, my dad turned up with about 5 anglers and all, with all their cameras.
Wicked.
Yeah.
What? Do you have a party after that? I bet,
yeah.
mate?
Do you know what? I packed up and went home.
Yeah.
I went over Hainault. I got my dad to take me. We packed up all my stuff. We all went to Hainault and just partied all week at Hainault.
You never know. I'm not saying it could possibly happen like I was sat there confident that I was going to catch the bit of a common. No. But any little tiny theory you've got in your mind, you've got to see it through. And if you don't, whether it be for better, for worse, you're going to drive home either way thinking, oh, I should have done this or should have done that. And, you know, but this so happened was one of the times that it did work for me. And I sat on my hands and basically I was on the phone to my mum. Brother gone walking. He was down the bottom of the dog leg. I was on the phone to my mum. The rod's gone, left hander at a 2. I remember, ring you back, boom, picked it up, and I could feel it was tense fucking thing. And I remember the middle rod going beep. I was like, shit, and I've passed it under. And that decision proved to be a very, very vital decision because it was free. Yeah. And I've gone and I've got up the scaffolding. If I hadn't have passed it under, I'd have been fucked, basically. It had tangles, yeah. So I passed it under the rod, got up on the scaffolding, done my thing, and he's got it in the bay. And I thought it was tense all the way in, and all of a sudden, giving me a bit like that.
And walked out. I thought, oh, it's only a little one like that. Netted it, walked down, and as soon as I flipped it on the side, that was it. It was Panic Stations. It was a mate. It was this Twisted Mouth Common.
I thought you were going to say that was the Burfield Common. She's done absolutely nothing. I was like, that thing
Came
is meant
in like the bus. Came in like the bus. Yeah, I had a bit of weed over my leader nut, didn't it? I did the leader nut trick. Got the tea towel on its eyes.
The most infamous scrapper of all flipping monster commons. She's waddled in.
So this was its mate. It was the little common with the twisted mouth. I've never seen that fish, picture of it. I'd love to know if there's anyone watching that have seen that fish. I'll give you the picture of it so they can have a look at it. If anyone's seen it or a capture of it, it'd be great to know. It would be good because I've never seen a picture of it. I've seen it in the water a few times and in my net. So yeah, and it was, you know what? It was such a nice fish, but at the same time, I was just thinking about the common being there. I've not seen a single show in the zone. And I've got this little mate here, so I literally threw it in a retainer.
Did you? Yeah.
No, I got it out. I only had the one net with me. You ain't going Burfield with two nets, mate. Come on.
Can you imagine?
So I've got one net with me. I've literally, Panic Stations grabbed this big. I used to have this massive chub retainer ready for it. Yeah, floating one. Boom, whacked it in, threw it in. Literally, I remember I didn't even tie it. Tie the retainer and I set the finger and I was watching the retainer and it was drifting down the margin a bit and I thought I can get it. I knew where it was going and basically I had this big stick and stuck it in, got it eventually, and put the net ready and that was it. And I was sat there and I was thinking, oh, like that, and I was just about to ring my brother and tell him, and my phone rang again. It was my mum. Oh, what was it? Talking to my mum again. And before I knew it, mate, that rod that I'd just passed a rod under with the other one on just went into meltdown, mate. And it just steambolted off. And there was no do your little nifty trick up the scaffolding about it, mate. You know what I mean? It was, you know, it was going and there was no stopping it. Wherever it wanted to go, it wanted to go. Eventually, it sort of started to swallow up. And I reckon it took probably 70, 80 yards of line off me on the first initial run, at least. But I don't know if that's exaggerated because of the braid, but, mate, when there's peeling off on braid, it is unreal. The heat coming off that spool when you're trying to cup it, you know, you get your finger caught in there, it's coming off. You know, simple as that. But eventually I've managed to get up on the scaffolding, done it all right, but this fish is so far out. I was fishing about 135 yards, I think. There's something around that. Obviously, I weren't sort of rapping in that, you know what I mean? I was just...
Yeah.
I think it's about 135 yards off memory, and this had took another sort of 70, 80 yards. It was out there in the abyss. It could go left or right, and I was fucked.
Yeah.
And basically, it did. It swung left. It went straight round the back of the island, and I was just pumping. And, mate, we've had the drone up there since, and that back of that island is savage, mate. Like, just death, you know, it's just death.
Instant death.
No, it's just death of trees, just loads of them, just like, and I could feel it, like that, and I'm just, oh no. And my line is just going into this bush on the corner of the island, there's this bush, and it's just going into it. I'm just like, no, man, and it's gone solid, I swear, man. It felt like it was solid for about 10 minutes, but I think it was about a second. And I was like, no. Honestly, I can feel the pain that it was giving me. And then all of a sudden, mate, I just see this bow wave on the corner. I thought, is it there? And I'm like that. And it did me a favour. It fucked itself, really. It was there on the corner of the island, and it had the snag behind it. And it swirled and it pinged me line out of the bush, and that was it. Rah! And that was it. It just shot. As soon as I made that connection direct with it, it shot from left to right. Was going for this other, like, where Alex's land is. He got this big pontoon, real nice house, and that, you know what I mean? A big pontoon. And it was going for that. And I just give it beans. Eventually managed to sort it out. It was going left and right and mad savage runs. It was just, it didn't like being hooked, basically. And I didn't know it was it. I didn't know it was it. I didn't know it was it. I had it in my head.
Yeah.
From the bite. I've got its mate. Everything, what it's done to me. I'm thinking, I've got this thing here. And then it went round this dot island on my left-hand side here. Just literally, there's an island probably as big as this room just on my left. And it's gone round the back of it. This bar is like this. And I've seen mussels on there like that. And I'm like, trying to keep me line up over this bar. I've seen them on there before. Like, and I'm thinking, if them mussels are on that bar, it's gone. And it's come as I've dragged it. It's gone around the furthest part of the bar where it's deeper when it went in there, and then when I've dragged it back round, it's come over the shower bit. Basically, beached the Bearfield Common. No, it was on its belly, but it came out the water a good sort of 6 inches, and that's when I first locked eyes on it, and I see a shoulder and a head, and I just knew it was it then. And then I still had it on for another probably 5 minutes or so at least, knowing that it was it. I wish it didn't. I wish it was in the night and I didn't know nothing. And it just went in. But basically, I only just fit it in the net, mate. It didn't want to go in, lad. It was huge. And funny story of it, I would say, is I had it propped up in the net, and my brother got round over, so I give him. He's actually got a video of he's never done anything with it, and he's running. It's a selfie video. He's running like this. He's like, when your brother's got the Bearfield Common and you're down the other end of the lake and his tits are going and everything. It's a brilliant video. I love it. And I love that he's never shown anyone it or done anything with it, because that's just our little thing. And I've just told everyone about it. Sorry, bruv.
They haven't seen it, so it's all right.
No. So yeah, there's that happened. And then he got round and I was like, and I knew for 1,000% that I've got the Bearfield Common. And I went, just go and check that it's it, Lloyd. Like that. I was like, check this out. I'm sat here. I mean, that's propped up. I've drove that net into the water. I reckon I drove that net into the lake bed about 9 feet.
Yeah, struck oil, mate.
It was basically in the water. It was nailed in the water. But yeah, anyway, mate, you know how big that is. Like, it was like, of course it's it. I was like, I know it's it, but I just wanted someone else to tell me. You know what I mean? Like, in such a surreal moment, mate. And obviously, you know the weight of it. Well, do we? We'll get to that. But basically, pretty sure Dan mentioned about the scales, didn't he, on his vlog? Yeah. So we'll come to that in a minute, just in case someone hasn't listened to Dan's. But yeah, so I've got this fish in the net, and I didn't want to take it out of the water, and I didn't dare try and do some sort of manoeuvre with it. So all I did was I got this big retainer, I put it underneath the net, zipped it up, and then just cut my net off.
Sorry, cut your net off?
I just got the scissors and just cut it.
Brilliant.
Just cut it, and then I put my hands in with this tiny like hole right in the top, because I just didn't want it to go, mate, you know? And I've put it in, and I've just got the net like that, and I've still got that net. I've still got it, and it's in my shed, and I've got the bite mark one, because that broke on me. When Adam netted it, snapped the arm. So I broke 2 nets on me 2 big.
Worth it for those 2,
Yeah, so I've still got it, but yeah, that was that, and yeah, I just love the videos of it. Is really good. That's why I love video, just because it really captures everything, doesn't it? The memories are the best, but you know you can't deny the videos. Do you
remember much? Like I always think, like
I remember up until afterwards, basically. Yeah, because we got smashed. No, I didn't need any adrenaline, mate. Mate, a lot of people have said to me, like, they've watched the footage, they've seen the shots, and even the lads that were there, they were like, how the hell did you hold that up with it out on your knee? I just literally, I don't like getting on my knees, like, because I once saw a guy actually fall backwards, and that was it. You know, I actually used to do it, and I see a guy do that, and that was it. Down on your knees, you got more control to just bend over the fish. But anyway, each to their own. So yeah, and I've just no-kneesed it, and I was there, and it's the adrenaline. You do it. If we tried to do it now with something that's £62, it ain't gonna happen.
No, what was it, 62.8?
62.8. Basically, yeah. So come to some of the moments that we got on video with Mega, you know, people cheering, you know, when they weigh it, you know, it's mad.
It's ridiculous.
You know, the noise that everyone, it's like, honestly, just scored the World Cup final goal, mate.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I hope you enjoyed that best of collection. I hope it inspires you to try and watch the full episodes, or maybe look at some episodes coming in the future. Now, I am, for those watching on YouTube, and those maybe listening, I'm somewhere else. I'm at the Expo, the Nash Expo 2021, and this is going to be the scene of episode 50 coming very soon. Thanks for watching. Make sure that you leave us a review, give us a like, give us a follow, and I'll see you next time from the Expo where I am now. Take care.